Welcome to the January 28th, 2020 board meeting of Everett Public Schools. Tonight we have a special guest with us, and Dr. Ian Salzman is going to introduce her.
Yes, good evening. Before we begin for the pledge, I'd like to introduce Miss Olivia Ireets from Eisenhower Middle School, and parents of Jennifer and Stuart, and her principal is Kevin Allen, and our fantastic director of bands, Nicole Whitley's here. She's going to be playing the Star-Spangled Banner after the Pledge of Allegiance. We saw her perform at the holiday concert prior to tonight. We just thought you were wonderful, and we want the public to see how great you are, so thank you.
Would you like to stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance right now.
I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, remain standing, please. Yes,
We're going to get a quick picture, if that's okay. You can leave your stand and bring your instrument. Directors?
Mom and Dad, come
Mom
on.
and Dad? Yeah.
Come on by, yeah.
Somebody can take your phone if you want.
Yeah.
You're in the middle. Mom and Dad, you're next.
Mom and Dad, come on up. Evan, come on in.
Oh, got this picture.
Oh, nice. Nice. April, can you guys switch a little bit? Come on. Yes. I think I got y'all ready. 1, 2, 3. And we'll do one more. Did you get them?
I think so. This is all showing because they're very.
Congratulations.
I'll let you escape the pictures.
Good job. Good job. There's 3.
And would the secretary please call the roll?
President Mason,
Present.
Vice President Lassane,
Present.
Director Mitchell,
Present.
Director Berg,
Present.
Director Nichols,
Present.
Student Representative Tran,
Present.
Student Representative Hussein.
Thank you. Our first item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Salzman, may you please introduce tonight's agenda?
Yes, good evening and thank you. Tonight's agenda contains the following: a segment for recognitions, the superintendent's report, segment for board comments, segment for public comments, segment for routine business, a segment for strategic progress monitoring, segment for information discussion, segment for new business, upcoming agenda items, and an executive session. Since publishing the agenda, the following changes have been made. Item 6.01, Superintendent Report was added. Item 9.02, the Personnel Report was updated with revised retirement dates. Employees taking advantage of the incentive changed their expected retirement dates after receiving information from the union regarding retirement benefits. And item 9.4 of the minutes for January 14 regular meeting was updated with a link to the minutes. The board may elect to change the order of business by a majority of the vote of the members.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Lassane and seconded by Director Nichols to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The agenda is adopted, which brings us to this evening's recognition, and I believe there are quite a few individuals involved in this recognition this evening. I'm not sure who's leading off tonight.
I guess they are.
Well, okay, please, come forward.
Well, President Mason, members of the board, and Dr. Saltzman, it is a tremendous honor to be here this evening representing the Everett Association of School Administrators as we express our genuine appreciation for the work that you do every day to benefit the students of Everett Public Schools. This is now my third year here in Everett. I have seen our reputation as a district grow into a solid position of leadership in the state. And the positive reaction that I consistently receive when I share with others that I work in Everett Public Schools makes me very proud. As a school board, your decisions are thoughtful and collaborative as you intentionally listen to the voices and needs of the students and families, the communities, and the employees of this great organization. Through your efforts, you embody each of the core values of equity and passion, integrity, learning, respect, diversity, and collaboration. And as times have changed, so have the needs of those that we serve, and you've been responsive through curriculum adoptions, communication strategies, instructional and infrastructural technologies, facilities planning, and community engagement. We've not simply kept up with the times, we've set the bar for other districts to aspire. And through this example, your benefit extends beyond our own boundaries and reaches across the state. We are so grateful to have such a dedicated, caring, and professional board guiding our work. And although this recognition is being expressed to you here today, we appreciate you every day, all year long. Thank you.
On behalf of the Everett Association of School Administrators, we want you to know that our organization is purchasing a book for each of the libraries of the schools in our district, and there will be a nameplate in the front of it, and it will say, this book is purchased for Emerson Elementary School or insert school library by the Everett Association of School Administrators in recognition of the outstanding leadership and service of the Everett Public School Board of Directors, January 2020. We asked the librarians to pick a book that relates to service, leadership, diversity, and so some of the titles that we will be purchasing are A Place to Land, Martin Luther King and the Speech That Inspired a Nation, The Seventh Most Important Thing by Shelley Pearsall, Just Mercy, adapted for young adults, Brave Black First by Cherry Hudson, Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson, I Can't Do That Yet by Esther Cordova, Women in Art, 50 Fearless Creatives Who Inspired the World by Rachel Ignatowski. So many other titles as well, but we want you to know that you will be recognized by in each of our schools. Thank you very much for all your service.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very thoughtful.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, directors. My name is Jenny Steele, and I am the Vice President of the Everett Education Association. And I'm standing in this evening for Jared Kink. He's leading our our Rep Council meeting this evening. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments and share the appreciation of our association and members for the work that you do. That's so meaningful. We appreciate the good relationship that we have that allows us to work together to make Everett one of the best places, well, the best place in Washington to work, if we're being honest. And it attracts wonderful members to our association and to this district that can do the good work that needs to be done. We appreciate having shared values and all that that can accomplish for the district and for our members, who are so important part of the work that we do. So thank you. We are grateful for you and the work that you do, and we look forward to continuing that work. And and nothing says thank you like a cake. So we brought you some bundt cakes from Nothing Bundt Cake, because they're the very best and nothing but the best for our board of directors.
Thank you.
Good. Exactly. Hi, my name is Jen Herman, and we are here on behalf of Everett PTSA Council, which represents 26 PTAs at our local schools and our special education PTSA, which covers the entire district. We have over 150 PTA board members serving in our school communities and about 5,000 members. Our PTA mission is to be a strong advocate for the well-being and education of all children. We know that as school board directors, you also share this vision and work to make the Everett School District successful for every child, that one size does not fit all. We understand that there are difficult decisions to be made, whether it's changing school boundary lines or deciding what goes into a capital bond election, and we have greatly appreciated opportunities for parent and community input. To directors Mason, Lassane, and Mitchell, if I've done my math right, collectively the three of you have about more than 20 years experience on the school board. That's a lot of evenings in this room for meetings alone. But of course, we know that it also requires a lot of work beyond that. We see you out at our schools, at events, and in the community, advocating and supporting our children and families. We appreciate your ongoing dedication and leadership. To our newest school board directors, Director Berg and Director Nichols, welcome. We are so glad that you are stepping into these important roles. We look forward to talking with you more at the March council meeting. Thank you for coming to that, and working with you as this board continues to set the vision and priorities for our large, growing, and diverse population of students and families. And last but certainly not least, our student representative, Ms. Tran, and I'll say Ms. Hussein, I'm sure she's going to watch the video. We have over 20,000 students in our district. Your voices on this board are critical. How policy impacts students is essentially what it's all about. So thank you for being here and participating. So again, to the entire school board, on behalf of our Everett PTA community, we express our sincere gratitude for all that you do. And our gift to you is our traditional gift of Reflections note cards. We had 21 PTAs participating in the Reflections Art Contest. We had 257 entries make it to council, and we set on 54 entries to Washington State PTA, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that some go on to National PTA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, nice to meet you. Yes.
So much, Lizzie.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
I'll just put them back here for
Yeah, I
now.
like that.
Thank you.
So cool. So-
I'm Jody Moyer. I'm the president of the Office Professionals.
Good evening. On behalf of the EAOP Executive Board, I would like to thank each board member for their role that each of you serve. You carry a large voice of our students, staff, parents, volunteers, and community members. Your hard work and dedication is greatly appreciated by our group. We had Everett Public School colored cookies made with your names customized to show our appreciation. And Dr. Salzman, we put your girls' names on the cookies. We greatly thank you and appreciate all you do for us. Thank you.
Oh, my God. This is a little
Good thing
overwhelming.
that the new Y just opened, because we got a little more sugar too. I'm Kate Banton, and I'm here on behalf of our board for the Everett Public Schools Foundation. And we're here because we understand that the key factors cities are pillars institutions, and most notably our schools. Because of Everett Public Schools is a major contributor to our growing success in our community. It educates our youngest citizens and ensures that they have the tools they need to succeed. Our schools are the center of our community and our ongoing economic and social and cultural vitality. School board members play a critical role with that. School board recognition is a month, but we're appreciative of your dedication, of the time that you give and devote to our Everett Public Schools. We all recognize the unique role you play in promoting and advocating the quality of education. As board members, you serve as advisors, decision makers, problem solvers, advocates for the Everett Public Schools, and you're elected by our community, and you get to be our voices for the vision for Everett Public Schools. We appreciate the countless hours in meetings and community advocating for our schools. Being a school board member is challenging role, but it's an important role to help lead our schools and prepare our students to lead our community. Our community benefits every day because of your dedication and the energy that you've given and devoted to Everett Public Schools. Even though we're taking just a special time in January, we do appreciate you all year long for everything you do for us. Everett Public Schools is fortunate to have such thoughtful, dedicated community members guiding and supporting our students. On behalf of the Everett Public Schools Foundation, our staff, and our donors, we want to say thank you with some lovely low-fat cupcakes. Not really. And we're grateful for our partnership, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much. Oh, so pretty.
Oh, and
Definitely love that.
red velvet, thank you. Oh, thank you. Red velvet, thank you.
I know the PTA would like a picture.
Thank you so much.
Can we get all of our partners up here?
Well, we can, but it's like 40, so we'll see if it fits. I was going to do them one at a time, but we can try it all at once if you want.
I think everybody needs to come up to show all the support that we give, that they give.
Yeah, I agree.
Sprout in.
We cannot do it without everyone.
Yeah, sure.
We're trying to get a picture for Craig, right? Okay, 2 rows though, 2 rows. You can squish closer. Just squish it. I need David there. Okay, I think I got it. That's great. A couple smiles. We'll do some cropping. And I'm good. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I think it's Liz. No, it's not. I was trying to give you a phone.
Can we share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, on behalf of the board, I would like to express our gratitude for everything that all of you do, all of our partners, all the work that you put in. We know that you spend as many hours, if not more, in meetings and advocating on behalf of our students. So we are just so fortunate to have you, and thank you so much for all the kind words and the little gifts. I just feel very fortunate that we are in a district that has folks like you. So thank you for being here tonight. You're welcome to stay if you want. But we appreciate you being in the boardroom tonight. Thank you. Okay, with that, with all the treats, we now move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Saltzman.
Thank you. Good evening. I would just like to publicly, to our public and to our base of community members out there, to thank our school board of directors one more time for their tireless efforts. They work so hard for the students, for the staff, and this is a 24-hour job for them, and they do an amazing work. So I'm very blessed to serve with them, and if we just give them one more round of applause, it would mean a lot. Thank you. Okay, I would like to share with you a presentation or a video on our bond, and turn it over to Ms. Kathy Reeves.
I'm just turning it on.
Yes, please. I'm in schools every day. I start my day in a school because I want to see how kids are learning. And what I do see is a need for space, a need for updating of facilities. We have schools that are 50 years old and great schools, but we need to update them now. It's time.
Everett Public Schools serves over 20,000 students who speak over 86 languages. We have 4 high schools, 5 middle schools, 18 elementary schools, and our district is growing. As we grow, we remain committed to our vision of success for each student. To meet this commitment, we're building for the future. What does that mean? Increasing safety and security across the district, so students come to school confident they're learning in a secure environment. Providing our students with facilities and tools they need for STEM careers. Providing students with room to learn in 21st century buildings, supporting the kind of education students need today. And providing equitable access to high-quality facilities across the district. On April 28, 2020, Everett Public Schools will ask the community to consider a capital bond, funding these efforts while reducing the overall school district tax rate. Why is the bond so important?
Capital bonds are really the only way that we have to fund major construction projects for public schools in our state. It is the only way that we can get the monies that we need to keep our roofs in good shape, our heating and cooling systems working, and our flooring replaced, but also to build permanent space for the growth that we're experiencing.
What's on the bond?
This bond focuses on STEM, safety, equity, and space.
With so many STEM and technical industries right in our backyard, Everett Public Schools is offering courses that prepare students for jobs in those fields.
Today there are a lot more opportunities, but with those opportunities, there's a need for this whole new set of skills, and that's where STEM comes in. The STEM skills that we need to provide our kids for these jobs are absolutely essential.
I want to be, when I get older, a mechanical engineer. I am going to take a class next year for it. The class I'm going to take next year is a 3-period class, and it includes math and English, and another period for manufacturing.
We've developed 6 career pathways that we're working on in partnership with our community. And some of those pathways can be implemented in any of our high schools, but some of those pathways have specific facilities requirements.
There is also a mismatch between the innovative and facilities, many of which do not support the type of learning happening in schools today.
Our advanced manufacturing program is in our auto shop. That's hard because it's not an auto class, it's advanced manufacturing.
We got new physics equipment this year, so that's good, but the space that we're using it in is pretty run down. The ceiling tiles are all stained, some are falling out.
No matter which school in the district a student attends, that student should have the same access to modern facilities and the opportunities afforded by 21st century learning spaces.
You have to look at other schools in the district that don't have the things that Tambar Creek has, and the schools need upgrading all the time.
The aging buildings at Everett Public Schools cannot support both the increased number of students the district has and small group learning, which is how students are taught today. Without designated breakout spaces, teachers make use of whatever space they can find, and students have to battle distractions while learning.
So here is a makeshift breakout area, if you will, or flex space in what amounts to a storage closet.
It's just such an old building that it's constant maintenance on plumbing, toilets in the bathroom. The heat is always going out. It's hot in one area, it's cool in another.
The infrastructure of the buildings themselves are wearing out. Jackson Elementary School is 70 years old. The other two elementary schools are around the same age, maybe 68 to 70 years old, and they're just worn out.
As a community and district, it is our duty and obligation and responsibility to afford every opportunity for all students to be successful, whatever it looks like.
The aging school buildings in Everett Public Schools were not built to meet today's safety standards.
This is a very difficult situation to try and make safe because a parent or any visitor can get buzzed into the building. Then they don't have to go into the office. They can go anywhere they want. Buildings such as this to meet today's stringent seismic codes.
The bond will add 58 new classrooms, the rough equivalent of 2 new elementary schools. Replace Madison, Jackson, and Lowell elementary schools. Modernize Cascade High School Science Building and expand space to better support aerospace and advanced mentoring career pathways. Modernize Everett High School's cafeteria and surrounding classrooms and vocational buildings so there's space to support the medical and health career pathway. Upgrade classrooms at Jackson High School, including classrooms to better support the information and communications technology career pathway. Upgrade the HVAC, roofing, and flooring. Improve safety and security at each school. Upgrade technology infrastructure across the district and more. How are the bond projects selected? A communities advisory committee 8 months.
2/3 of that committee was from the community, and then we had about 1/3 staff. And the committee actually produced the recommendation that became the board-approved bond proposal.
The committee decided that the high school would not be on the current bond package. One high school had low in numbers, and Jackson High School was higher in numbers. So when they made that adjustment to the boundaries, they found that we wouldn't actually need a high school for quite some years.
The recent high school boundary change relieved pressure for the time being by moving some enrollment from the south end to the north end. What will the capital bond cost? If approved April 28, 2020, the new school district tax rate would decrease from $4.87 to $4.78 per $1,000 of home value.
Anytime you have student success and student achievement, that makes your community better, brings pride to your community, brings economic value to our community, okay? We want our students to not only graduate here, but to come back here and be great citizens.
Want to learn more about the Everett Public Schools Building the Future Capital Bond 2020? Visit everettsd.org/bond 2020 and remember to vote by April 28, 2020.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, and I hope everybody was able to see that tonight. My next report is, before you blink, it'll be commencement. Can you believe how fast the year is going? How fast the year is going, commencement. And we have 2 board of directors that will have children walking across the stage. So I'm happy to announce that Director Mitchell's daughter, Becca, received her early acceptance letter from Lafayette College, and Director Mason's son Coulter is excited to be finished with his college applications. So now when I go to schools, I ask the seniors how many days left, and they are starting to count. My suggestion is do not get senioritis at this time, okay? Right. I want to welcome home Captain Director Lassane, who recently returned from her Life Touch mission trip in the Dominican Republic, where she helped not only at a library, a computer lab, and an infirmary. She also took with her a suitcase full of donated books written in Spanish to share with the children. We hear it was a great story to tell with a big smile. I know we'll hear more about that tonight, but welcome back, and thank you for representing the Everett Public School System.
Thank you. Thank you.
We had a little snow on the ground last week.
A little snow.
Okay, and I cannot thank the maintenance department enough, the community enough for your support, and everybody. It was a challenging weather, but our grounds crew did a wonderful job. Nearly 100% of the crew answered the call and worked diligently clearing the snow from our school properties. I want to take time to thank everybody for that. I want to especially thank Mike Gunn, Jeff Moore, Molly Ringo, and Debbie Kovacs in the HR department, and all the regional soups. We're all in this together, trying to make sure that staff and children were safe. So I thank you all for that. And we have a construction update, okay? Everett High School Vocational Building Medical Pathways Program. 2 existing classrooms have been converted to the medical simulation labs, and 4 existing classrooms have been converted to wet labs in support of the launch of the Medical Pathways Program. To fully develop the program, the district will need to modernize these buildings, which includes the HVAC system, for example, to properly vent those spaces. I want to thank Dana Riley Black and her team to making sure that we get the right programs for the right kids in our career pathways. So to our community, I thank you again for coming out this evening. We appreciate your support every day, and especially during the snow time. Your patience and feedback to us was instrumental. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salzman. Again, lots of good news happening. That takes us to section 7.0, board comments, and this is a time for directors to share anything that they've been doing as it relates to business. And I think I will start to my left with Director Lassane.
Well, my report, I would like to mention something of what I had to do, I guess, for the last 10 days. But since it might be long, it might be a good idea to start and then come back to me last, so I don't take up too much time.
You're still going to take up the same
You're
amount
still
of time.
going to take the same amount of
share your
time. So
joy.
start and be concise,
Be concise.
And share your joy.
knowing
Okay.
that you have four others,
Oh my
5
gosh.
others.
Well, I had the great opportunity to accompany 43 other individuals in education. They happen to be either principals of elementary school, middle schools, or high schools. They either had participation in PTA, or they were in school board associations across the country. They were also like parts of missing in children's businesses across the country. And it was also Life Touch. They do the photography at the individual schools in our district as well as other districts nationwide, and Shutterfly, which happens to be a subset now of Life Touch photography. But I accompanied them to the country of the Dominican Republic. And there we had the great opportunity of building onto a school which was started in 2011 by other groups of educators. And each year they would go down there and add on to the school. This trip, we added on a library, a computer center, and an infirmary. The infirmary will be able to house a dentist, as well as a medical doctor who will come into the community and support the community as well as the students in the school. This is a small community. There are about, right now, 120 kids who attend school. It's K through the it's pre-kindergarten through 6th grade. And I had the opportunity of taking down with me books that were in Spanish that were donated by Everett Public Schools librarians, as well as the individual schools as well. There were in total 43 books. 43 books, and I would like to thank you all. 43 books, all in Spanish. And what we did do also is I bought a map, because they mentioned they did not have any maps on the wall, which I have pictures to show they did not have any world maps on the wall. Bought a big map in which I put the logo of Everett Public Schools up in the, the top left-hand side, and then a star for the Dominican Republic so that they can see where their books came from and they can see where we're located in the big scheme of everything. But I'm really very grateful for having the opportunity of going down there. I connected, which is the most important thing, is relationships that you build. I connected with 4 young students, 2 young men and 2 young ladies, and I hope I convinced them to stay in school because they were very, very happy to be able to talk and share their English that they knew, which was very little, but hopefully my Spanish wasn't so bad, but it wasn't very great. But we had translators. I shared with them the things, the desires that I had for them as students of the world, just to stay in school, be able to support your and help your family, and to continue the dreams that you had. Because one thing is for certain, this particular small town is called Rio Grande. It's right out of the city of Constanza, Dominican Republic. You cross the river Rio Grande, and it's really quite interesting effort to get there and cross the bridge. It's a very narrow bridge. One bus at a time can cross it. But it's really interesting to be able to meet some of the families that were there. I had the opportunity, the children that I connected with, to meet their families and talk with their parents, and just to see what hopes and desires they had for their kids and their community. And it was impressive that they have the same hopes and desires as we do for our kids. They want the best for their kids. They know that after the 6th grade, their kids are probably going to stay in the community and work on the farms that are in the community, because it is an agricultural society there in this little town. They grow lettuce, cabbages, onions, vanilla, and they harvest it with the help of their children. And because it's mountainous, they harvest and they plant all the way up the side of the mountains, and they use the kids to go up the side of the mountains in order to harvest the crops that they have. But what I did, and I have a video to prove it, I did learn how to build a block wall. And these are the only kind of walls that we should be building, walls for schools. No other kind of walls, even though it's close to the Rio Grande. But those are the only kind of walls we should be building. I learned how to build one. I had fun with it because, as I mentioned, 43 other educators went down and assisted in this building. And I got to meet some really great people. I connected also with the principal. I gave her my business cards. They do have internet, and she is going to be, her name is Judy Cruz. She is going to be continuing to connect with us to see if we would like to come back down, and also to help continue to supply books for their library. I said we would love to do do that. I hope you don't mind. I'm sure we would. Time's gone over there first, because I have a tendency to talk a little bit too long. But I really believe this was a great opportunity for me to be able to be a servant for those, connect with families and students, because it's not just the building that's as important. What's really is the relationship the individuals meet. And you're able to let them know a little bit about your life here and how it is really no different than their lives. And we all want the same things in life. And we all value our children just as much. And so I'm really grateful for that experience. So, as I mentioned before, I did not go. Everett Public Schools went. And I will in the future share a lot more pictures and videos of what took place down there. There was a Facebook Live video that was done on the 16th. We have several copies, I guess. They make copies of it so we can go back and watch it anytime we want. And there's also a Facebook Live video of the presentation to the school principal of the books that I took down there from you all. So thank you so much for your volunteering effort to get those books. I really appreciate the effort that you took in talking to the schools and making sure they had their students there write nice things in Spanish to the students there in Rio Grande. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sounds like an amazing experience and trip.
Oh, I got the videos.
Yeah.
So I got
Director Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. Okay, first off, I want the PTA to know I really do use these. They go all over the country to family and friends that I need to add, especially my niece and nephew. But first off, I want to thank you for recognizing my daughter. I moved to this district, I know I've told this story before, but because of my daughter, because my roommate from high school went to Everett High School. And so when we got pregnant, it was, we will live in Everett, and where will we live? And when we got started getting mail from the Sonoma School District, I actually called up the county and said, who do I pay taxes to? And they said Everett. So I wanted to make sure that my daughter was educated in this district. But I serve on the school board not because of my daughter, but because of the 20,000 students. And so it's my pleasure to do this, and it's the best thing that I get to do. Ian, I did receive recognition from a parent today about your excellent communication about the snow days. So since you recognize your staff, I would like to recognize you because she felt very well informed about what was happening. So just thank you for that. The two different things that I went to recently, the legislative kickoff, where the legislators, there were there from the 1st, the 44th, the 32nd, and a couple other districts. And pretty much the talk, and we've already received some notification, not a lot of school funding, but how do they strengthen pre-K? How do they strengthen career-connected grants, Core Plus Aerospace, early childhood education, some other things. And so it was really nice to hear their candor with what they can and can't do. Then went to the state of Everett and received heard what was happening here in this community. It would be nice if Mill Creek could do such a thing so we could learn too. But very well attended event. And then talked to my next door neighbor and then who works for Boeing, and then also a different leader at Boeing, just their thankfulness for our partnership with them at Cascade. I forget the number that I was quoted of how many graduates from Cascade they just recently hired. And it was in their certificate program, and just what a great thing that is. And that my next door neighbor was a little tired after the 777 launch because she had to be there every time, and but just so thankful for everything we do for STEM education, and shared that with me yesterday. So thank you, Dana, and everyone else that's part of that program. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Burke.
It's been a good couple of weeks. It was nice to not have snow on the ground while doing some of these instructional reviews. And so I was able to visit Tambart Creek as well as Mill Creek Elementary. Amazing, amazing places. I think the instructional reviews are great for not only the campuses that we visit, but for us as directors, and I'm sure staff feels the same way. We get to learn about the students, the school, the culture. And those are just terrific schools. The other thing I was able to do was do a deep dive on iReady at Hawthorne Elementary. And so thank you, Catherine, and your team who made that just an amazing process. I feel so much more knowledgeable. And honestly, I feel like I can be a better advocate for that program. So I'm really looking forward to the webinars. I think that's going to be coming out. I want to sit on one of those personally, but I also want to advocate for parents to go on those webinars to learn more, because I think once you learn about the program, you can not only utilize it better, but really get your kiddo up and running where they need to be. The takeaway for me is just it being an amazing diagnostic tool, but also being able to provide scaffolding for our kids when they need support, because no matter where they are in the spectrum, all of our kids need support at some point. The other aspect that I'm super excited about is that Evergreen Middle School is piloting it for our middle schools, and so I'm excited to see how that pilot program turns out. I think it could really pay big dividends if we could get our middle schoolers that, again, diagnostic tool and scaffolding that's the same across the district. So thank you so much for that.
Director Nichols.
I'll keep it brief since we're short on time. I've been doing a lot of meetings with district staff, trying to get up to speed. I definitely want to thank Jeff and his team for meeting with me today, as well as Kay over in the foundation for giving me a better sense of what's happening. And thank you for everybody who came out to offer your support for the board today. I hope that through the course of the next 6 years, I earned that appreciation that you expressed here today. Thank you very much.
Student Representative Tran.
Happy New Year, first off. Nothing that big has been happening for me, but we wrapped up the food drive at Cascade at the end right before winter break. And this year I got to participate in not just shopping day, but also delivery day. So it was really cool to see like the actual families we were giving food to, and like how easily the school comes together for such a big event to help the community. And it was just a great time seeing kids from like various grade levels and social backgrounds come together to help the community.
Great, thank you. I just have a couple quick comments. I wanted to say thanks to the teachers and the staff also. I know our maintenance crew did an incredible job keeping the snow off the ground and our schools safe, but there were a lot of teachers and staff members that also had to work extra, and having students out of class for 3+ days the week before finals, I think was particularly at the high school level, a real challenge for a lot of our teachers. They had a lot of last minute learning and review packed into those 3 days that was just sort of gone. And so I know they worked very hard to figure that out and make that up. And then also, I'm just spending most of my time with instructional reviews. Are they all done at this point?
Not yet.
How close are we?
We're a week away, 2 weeks away.
Okay, 1 or 2 weeks away. I've shifted my focus a bit to meeting with folks in our community to help them better understand about our bond and what's in that package. And I just am so energized by the positive reception that I've been receiving and the enthusiasm and support for our students. So it's just been very uplifting to get out there and have those conversations. So with that, we're going to move to public comments. And I would like to welcome the individuals who have come forth tonight to join us. The board recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of involving members of the public in our meetings. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome you to this meeting. School board meetings are designed to conduct district business in public. We welcome ideas and opinions in that same spirit. I would like to share how this portion of the meeting is conducted. I will call you to the podium in the order in which you signed up tonight. Each speaker has 3 minutes. All comments are recorded and will be made available for future viewing by the board and the public. The public comment part of this agenda is for the board to listen to what you have to say. It is not a time for debate or discussion. Board members do not respond to individual comments. As board president, I have the responsibility to ensure the meeting and all conversations are orderly, productive, and respectful. I thank you for helping me with this responsibility. Our first speaker this evening is Leslie Navarro. Leslie is a parent and guardian of a student in our district.
Hi, my name is Leslie Navarro, and I am a parent leader from PLTI, or Parent Leader Training Institute. I come to talk about my fantastic experience there because I never know how the education systems work here in the United States because I'm from Peru. And there everything are different in my country. The goal of the PLTI is to do our community project. In my case, my community projects will be teach Spanish class in a view-rich elementary school for this coming year, 2021. I work now with the principal and the PATI, and I'm very excited for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your comments tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second speaker is Alana Wilson, and please introduce yourself when you come forward so I can, in case I mispronounce your name. She's also a parent or guardian of the district and also would like to address the board on the Parent Leadership Training Institute Community Project, which I should have mentioned with our former speaker. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Alana Wilson, and I was also a part of the Parent Leader Training Institute at Everett Community College, and it was a really great program. Like lessons, a lot about how different policies and committees work that we didn't know beforehand. Part of the graduation requirement was to come up with a community project, which is what I wanted to mention briefly, kind of make aware what I was trying to do, which is at Everett High School. I have 4 children, 3 still in the home in school, and I have a 10th grader at Everett High School, and I noticed during her time there is a lot of at-risk youth that have very little parent involvement. And that's just really important to me because a lot of these children she is friends with and they have a lot of potential, and they don't have the support at home. They don't have really a lot of guidance and anyone behind them saying you can do this and holding them accountable and all of that kind of stuff. So what I'm trying to do at Everett High School is come up with a mentorship program for at-risk youth with little parent involvement. And so what that kind of looks like would be people from the community volunteering their time, similar to like maybe a big brother, big sister type of situation. But they would be in contact with the students, teachers. They'd be in constant communication with the student. They would be there to be available to help possibly tutor or to encourage them in maybe extracurricular activities, or taking them to college nights, maybe things that the children wouldn't be exposed to otherwise. A little bit about trying to start, and it is called Youth on the Rise.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'd like to thank both of you for coming this afternoon and sharing your experience, and especially for your advocacy on behalf of our students. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you. With that, we will move to the consent agenda. Dr. Salzman, can you please introduce the
Yes, and just point of privilege, Director Mason. As I was reading my notes, because it's hard to read my notes sometimes, I also want to publicly thank Kathy Reeves and her department during the snowstorm. Kathy, are you back there? Okay, thank you for taking the 5 a.m. phone calls, you, Linda, and Jennifer. And, you know, we forget to do this because the person's on the right to me, but I call Darlene Vonegas every morning, too, and she just bright and cheery said, we're on it. So I thank you, Kathy, and your team, and Darlene, because I could not have get it done without you. All right, so consent agenda. Thank you for that. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts and grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes includes items that occur less frequently but are of routine nature, business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of the consent agenda, the superintendent's office has received no questions or comments regarding these items. Therefore, the consent agenda is presented as published for board approval.
Thank you. A motion is in order to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Director Berg and seconded, I can never say that word, by Director Mitchell to adopt the consent agenda. Does any director wish to move an item from the consent agenda and place it in the new business section of the agenda? Hearing no requests, we will move to a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The consent agenda is adopted. Next, we have section 10.0, strategic progress monitoring. And because we had a snow situation at our last board meeting, we have moved our math performance status update to this meeting. And yeah, you didn't miss anything.
Look at me.
No.
Look at me.
Pretty much to the consent agenda next.
And Mike McCarthy is going to kick it off.
So Board President Mason, Superintendent Salzman, members of the board, and the community, good evening. I'm Mike McCarthy, the Director of Mathematics, and I'm looking forward to sharing this mathematics status update with you this evening. I'll just get into the slide. Forgive my voice. I've been ill, as you have Director Mitchell, over the last couple of weeks. So again, this evening's session, I plan to provide a status update of the district's math performance and supports for current and future academic growth and continued transition to the Common Core state standards, which is adopted by Everett and the Washington Public Schools. District math team tonight includes Tracy Clifton, our STEM facilitator at grades preschool through second grade. And we also have Jana Sanchez, who represents our third through fifth grade facilitating skills in STEM activities. We also have Kathy Trosvig, our secondary math facilitator, here with us this evening. And it's the work of this team, as well as the principals and teachers in our schools, that I have the privilege of sharing with you this evening. I hope you've had an opportunity to review the presentation, but it is here on our screen as well. In this evening session, again, the format will be following the key performance indicators that you see listed here. I'll give you just a second to review those from our strategic plan. All right, so as I said, the format for this evening's review will be that I'll first review Everett Public Schools' history of actions related to the implementation of the Common Core state standards related to mathematics. Next, I'll summarize the math achievement status at each level, elementary, middle, and high school. And in addition, I'll present what we believe to be the contributing factors or rationale behind the achievement at each level. I'll end with an overview of our district support strategies currently in place, as well as plans to support an increase in mathematics learning and achievement for each student in Everett Public Schools. So this slide represents a historical walk through the last decade of Everett mathematics here in Everett Public Schools. It provides an overview of many of the district's actions in the last 10 years related to mathematics. And as you recall, Washington State adopted the Common Core state standards for English and mathematics in 2011. Following that adoption, these standards represented both shifts in content and pedagogy or teaching content. These standards, developed by math educators, researchers, and mathematicians, were created to support students' college and career readiness. As you know, Everett Public Schools, along with every district in Washington, was required to transition to the Common Core in 2012. Our district included the adoptions of a new high school math curriculum in 2012, as well as a kindergarten through 5th grade Common Core material in 2013. As these adoptions were just months from the launch of Common Core state standards, many publishers produced materials that were very similar to the old standards and the old content, and essentially stamped the words Common Core aligned on the covers of the materials rather than address the shifts that were required by both the content and the instructional practices in mathematics. In 2015, Washington State shifted to the Smarter Balanced Assessment, and this assessment was much more rigorous than the prior state assessment, the WASL. The rigor of the standards notably reflected in the assessments nationally at higher levels of notably shifting the study of mathematics from computation and procedural fluency to contextualized problem solving, the communication of reasoning, and asking students to justify their thinking with that reasoning. As a result, teachers in Everett and across the country were required to examine their practices, and publishers were required to truly develop a material aligned to the Common Core standards. To guide instruction in our school, we developed a balanced mathematics model, as you'll see there, and we'll expand on that balanced math model in just a few minutes. But this period from 2012 to 2017 represented a time of system learning, culminating with a book study for our principals who in 2017 read the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics Principles to Action. Provided in this board presentation are links to the executive summary for Principles to Action, which calls for districts to shift instructional pedagogy to something that is more aligned and rigorous so that students can understand mathematics at high levels. And we'll speak of one of these resources in just a few minutes. By 2018, the availability of instructional materials that are truly aligned to Common Core was in existence, and our district adopted, with your support, the rigorous and aligned Open Up resources, which was a part of the Illustrative Mathematics series of texts. In addition to the middle school adoption in 2018, iReady was introduced to our students in grades K through 5. So as noted on the previous slide, the period from 2012 to 2017 represented a time of district-wide learning about math education and how to support teachers in shifts of instructional practice guided by the Common Core state standards and the Principles to Action Effective Math Teaching Practices, which again was published by the National Council for Teachers of Mathematics. Our district's balanced math model aimed to shift instruction from a singular focus on computational fluency to have teachers build procedural fluency from conceptual understanding while balancing these key ideas and skills with problem solving and application. On the right side, you see how this balanced math model reflects in the Common Core state standards. Again, links to these items are in the presentation. And the effective math teaching practices from NCTM. For example, the 2011 Common Core Standards document, a key standard for students is that they need to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. This standard aligns to the effective teaching practice listed on line 4 of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics Effective Teaching Practices, where teachers are charged with facilitating meaningful mathematical discourse. There are many other effective teaching practices that lead to students becoming fluent with the mathematics content and practice standards. And for the first time in 2017, our systems leaders were focusing on this type of teaching and learning. This will be significant to know as we examine our math data and continue to plan for material adoptions and professional learning ahead. Research, including that from NCTM and from the Common Core developers, are showing that if we teach math in these specified and effective ways, students learn in the ways that are needed for college and career success. With this knowledge and the shift necessary for high core aligned instruction, we'll next look at data that shows progress and opportunity. So shown here on this slide is both the English language arts above and the mathematics achievement as represented in balanced assessment result 2016 through 2018-19 school year. And as you can see, as students matriculate through our district, the general trend is an increase in ELA proficiency and a decrease or a decline in mathematics proficiency. Over the next several of slides, I'll closely the math achievement by grade band while we consider a rationale and contributing factors to each of these levels and the opportunities we have to enhance student learning for each student in Everett Public Schools. So as you may know, the Smarter Balance Assessment is administered at grades 3, 4, and 5 at the elementary school level. As we look closely at these elementary assessment results, we see that over the past 5 years, at each of the 3 grade levels, elementary achievement has been increasing, while state results have remained flat. This is something to celebrate, and not just because we're outperforming the state, as we believe we should be outperforming the state, but that we are distancing ourselves further from districts around the region and the state increasingly each year with our support, focus, and professional learning. Of note, our elementary students are the only cohort of students that have grown up through a system of Common Core state standards, the EPS balanced math model, and they've had teachers who have had consistent access to training related to effective math teaching practice. We believe this investment is paying off at the elementary level, and we want to continue this success until every student at every level is successful across our system. The information on this slide shares what we believe are the contributing factors or rationale for the status of mathematics achievement at the elementary level. Again, while some elementary schools have been afforded a math coach in the past, starting last year, each elementary school was allocated full-time employment for a math coach or FTE. Similar to their counterpart, the English language arts coaches, which have been in existence for quite some time, the math coaches have been able to lead for implementation of system-wide shifts in instructional practice. They've been able to model effective teaching practices, and they've also been able to guide professional learning community work within each school. In addition to the coaches, we believe our gains are also due to elementary students being provided access to the standards-aligned diagnostics and online resources in iReady. Another key contributing factor for growth in mathematics at the elementary level has been the material adopted in 2013. And we've created aligned maps that align the actual rigor of the Common Core state standards and the Smarter Balanced Assessment. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, this is an elementary instructional map example that our fabulous facilitators and teachers work with. This is truly a labor of love, but teachers and teams of coaches are guided by the math department facilitators to create an instructional plan for each grade level and every unit in a day-by-day format for teaching a non-perfectly aligned curricular resource. So as you see here, it's a planning template aligned with Common Core standards, anchor charts, math routines with video. This is all to supplement a resource that was not truly Common Core aligned. In this template, the standards are highlighted, additional content is added, directions on which segments of the curriculum to use are shown, and what segments should be skipped are also highlighted. Videos modeling instructional practices are linked, balanced math stations are explained with links to resources for teachers, and assessment plans are provided. Again, all to supplement a resource that is not truly Common Core aligned. Here we see the middle school Smarter Balance Assessment data. And in contrast to the elementary achievement data, our middle school data as measured by the SBA is mixed. We see here that in 6th grade, the trend from elementary school continues with a modest 4.6% gain over the last 5 years, while the state remains relatively flat as in the elementary school data set. We do, however, see that there is a clear change marked by a decline in both 7th and 8th grade mathematics over the last 5 years. In 2018, 19 was the first year of implementation of a truly standards-aligned material, and we see very modest gains in 6th and 8th grade from 2017-18 to 2018-19. So while teachers were provided initial professional development, launched their use of material, we recognize the need for additional support to ensure that teachers continue to make those instructional shifts that are important for effective teaching. Again, on this slide, we share what we believe to be the contributing factors for middle school data. As is the case for the adoption of most instructional materials, the amount of change can take time to secure a full and successful implementation. The new middle school math instructional materials have brought about significant change for our teachers, for students, and for families. These changes include updates to content, shifts in instructional practices, as well as the OpenUps resource materials is accessible via digital platform Canvas, which is new to our system and our teachers. In addition, a contributing factor for stagnant results at the middle level may be attributed to the time allocated for math teaching and learning in our middle schools. Teams are currently investigating opportunities to increase time allocated to mathematics at the middle level mathematics, as middle level mathematics instruction receives approximately 1/2 the time allocated at the elementary level and 1/2 the time allocated to English language arts at the middle school level. Here is just one example of the integration of Open Up resources and our digital platform Canvas, which is a powerful tool for teachers, but new and requires training and development for our system. On the right, you see grade 7 assessment questions, and you'll notice that these questions may look slightly different than what you and I saw when we were in school. This particular question is asking us to answer the question with all the correct equations that are true when x is -4. In a question set like this, students are asked to provide evidence for what the correct answer is, not just selecting a multiple choice question. And finally, this task is asking students to communicate their reasoning in written language. So they're not only being assessed on their mathematics, but their ability to explain and extend their thinking and provide that in an evidence-based rationale here on the assessment. We'll discuss strategies for continuing to support this tool in Canvas as an assessment for middle level learners in subsequent slides. And here is the high school math SBA data. This slide represents Everett Public Schools high school achievement data on the Smarter Balance Assessment. Similar to our middle school achievement, the results are mixed. From 2014 to 2018, when students were assessed at grade 11, there were steady increases in achievement rates with students who were assessed. However, when the Smarter Balance Assessment transitioned to grade 10, marked by the bar in the center of the graph, an achievement decline is shown from 2017-18 to 2018-19. In addition, we see the gap between the state of Washington and Everett Public Schools shrinks as time moves on, and that's truly a concern that it has us launching our effort and attention to concentrate at the secondary level in support of instructional practices and student learning and achievement. So this slide begins to introduce some of the areas we have identified as needing support at the high school level. First of all, an adoption of a core high school math materials content is underway. As you noted from an earlier slide, we have not had a new resource in the last 8 years here in Everett in high school. However, in addition to new materials, we need to continue to provide support for teachers and principals in their understanding of the new standards aligned to instructional practices. Similar to the iReady diagnostic utilized at the elementary level, there's also a need for a secondary assessment tool which is aligned to current best practices. We also recognize that as we enhance instruction at earlier grades and monitor the effectiveness of those resources and interventions, we expect high school achievement to increase. But current data shows that compounding results of gaps in earlier grades are in existence. So I'll now shift from reviewing achievement data and describing contributing factors for this data to share how we're providing specific support across the Everett Public Schools system. Our district's math team is supporting schools' implementation of standards-based instruction in several ways. As less than 10% of our principals have degrees or have taught in mathematics, we work to enhance these leaders' instructional leadership for mathematics in our schools. We offer support for principals during their principal meetings. We work during walkthroughs with math-only focuses on the effective math teaching practices as look-fors. We also work with professional learning communities offering supports identified after instructional reviews. We have been leading and facilitating observation for evidence of learning labs, which is an evidence-based, job-embedded professional development model that's powerful for teachers. In addition, as requested by schools, we also facilitate Learning Improvement Friday to enhance outcomes for students and staff. So continuing the discussion of systematic support strategies, here is an example of our instructional review process, which has been a great data point and tool for identifying next steps in support of schools. About 80% of the action plans that result from the new instructional review process include math at the time of this presentation. This slide shows sample action plans related to the shifts in mathematics. For example, we have been asked to strengthen PLC work and lead analysis of data and creating instructional and intervention plans. We've also been asked to provide job-embedded professional development to increase discourse and reflection, among other powerful mathematics instructional practices. So in addition to our support strategies that occur throughout the school year, the mathematics team is continuing to plan for and offer elementary, middle, and high school opportunities with targeted support for students who show significant gaps in learning, for those who wish to be accelerated, and for high school students needing to recover credits. The next series of slides will introduce additional supports by each grade level. At the elementary level, we continue to enhance the capacity in building math coaches that can work side by side with teachers to deepen their pedagogy and their content knowledge. We'll also continue to develop the detailed math instructional maps, as you saw earlier, and we'll continue to support schools and teachers in utilizing the gap-closing instructional resource, iReady. At the middle level, we're enhancing each school's leadership capacity to identify and lead for instructional shifts required by the new Open Up resources. This work is being supported by a new partnership with the University of Washington and the Northwest Educational Service District. For teachers, we're providing web-based and job-embedded professional development to model the math teaching practices, as well as provide access and the R Canvas tool. Finally, at the middle level, we're collaborating with secondary structures committee members to identify and support the increase of instructional time and the powerful use of this time for students across our system. At the high school level, we're also working each school's math leadership by way of the secondary math leadership team, which includes representative leaders from across each high school, to support our most valuable, our most vulnerable course, which is intensified algebra. We do contract with a group to ensure that success is had for students that are taking that intensified algebra course. Finally, the main focus for high school mathematics has been the process to adopt a core high school math curriculum and instructional resource. There's a 25-member adoption committee, and it's comprised of a diverse group of members from the community, from each high school, and from all facets of the central office. Our aim has been to learn and select a resource aligned to the Common Core standards and the rigors of the instruction that need to take place in order for students to access that information. This committee plans to make a recommendation to the Board of Directors in the spring and begin implementation in the fall of 2020-21. So now that I've shared the systematic and level-focused support, I'd like to share our strategies enhancing that support as we move forward from 2020 through 2025. As you've heard, our strategies include a focus on secondary assessment and instruction, as well as consideration for structures to increase time for instruction and intervention at the middle level. We also have a tentative outline for the adoption of future math instructional materials. And we realize that there's much more than just an adoption of a curriculum, but professional development and aligned resources make that combination powerful for students. I'll just pause on the dates so you can see those. So in summary, I've reviewed the district's history of actions related to mathematics. I've also provided an overview of the math achievement at each level. In addition, I've discussed the rationale for achievement levels and described the support strategies in process and planned. I've ended with actions increase and enhance each and every student in Everett Public Schools. And we appreciate you engaging here, and thank you again the time. We look forward to all students increasing achievement in mathematics in Everett.
Thank you. Thank you for a very detailed presentation regarding math instruction right now. With that, I'm going to put it out to directors or student representative if you have any questions regarding the presentation.
I have a question. Because of the instructional review at Gateway and Director Berg's comment, which I knew was with the iReady at the middle school level, but only at one school, that Ian and Dr. Scott and I sort of talked about what are the opportunities really for that diagnostic tool to be at the middle school level, just looking at Gateway's results for the SBA specifically. especially like looking at, HC kids that skip whole levels of math that are coming out of elementary school, and as we're compounding math at the middle school and talking to math teachers, where are some opportunities that could be there, especially again for that diagnostic part of do kids like my daughter who got up to 8th grade and they went, wow, she doesn't know basic like computation because she'd skipped some stuff along the way, and how do we reinforce that? And then it would just be sort of, I think it's a challenge for us, not of you, but how do we maybe look at that a little bit differently? And then just thank you for this information, because it has been a challenge for us when it comes to math. I believe when we did that last curriculum adoption, what was Common Core wasn't really Common Core, and how that slows things up and a lot of supplementing. And I appreciate you bringing your leadership team here today, because I know there's been a lot of supplementation that's been happening, and just strong work as we move forward. So thank you.
I do have a question, and please feel free to jump in if this is too far into the weeds or is better kind of gone offline. But during your assessments, going into how the recommendations that you're making, are you going in and talking to these teachers and these students? Because like if you go back to slide 11, you're looking at some of these within groups differences. Like some of these groups from year to year show an increase or a maintenance. Some are up and down. So obviously, it's good to look at the trends, but are we looking at what's working for different students versus what's not working? Is it instructional style? Is it time? Those types of things.
So we would be happy to set a time to look more deeply at the data with you, because we do go much deeper into the data. And Mike and his team do spend a lot of time in the schools and with the students to explore these strategies.
Okay. I just have a question. So you're talking about the integration of Open Up with Canvas. And so I'm wondering how would that be affected if we did take that pilot program with iReady over to the middle school? How would that affect that integration? And I guess the second part of my question is, if it's currently integrated, is it being currently used as a diagnostic tool for middle grades? And are the teachers actually using it? Because I have not seen that to be the case. And it would be really helpful at the middle school level.
So with every curricular resource, there are unit assessments. The benefit of Open Up is that it does have, the curricular resource has assessments that are accessed through Canvas. So elementary has iReady, and it also has unit assessments. And it's a system that we want to continue to support teachers in utilizing. It is powerful. It's just a digital way to take an assessment that's aligned to the Common Core.
And then with that alignment, one of the features of iReady is that it actually says, hey, now go do these things based on that diagnostic. I'm assuming Open Up doesn't have that extra piece?
No, it gives teachers diagnostic information about their student in a particular unit versus this is the whole year.
But it's up to them to say, how do we take care of that gap, right? Like, so if there was a computational gap, then that teacher would have to say, okay, here's what I'm going to assign, versus something like iReady says, yep, go click here, we're going to fill it for you. Is that, I'm just trying to figure out the differences.
As Dr. Scott shared, it's not computer adaptive, so it doesn't take them and place them in a specific pathway as iReady
that makes
does.
Sense. Okay, perfect.
Director Lassane? Or Student Representative Tren? Go ahead, please.
My question was kind of similar to Director Mitchell's, but just like from the slide 21, the Common Core and like the high school core materials implementation, I was kind of curious as to how that is going to affect students who, like Director Mitchell's daughter, who like excel and skip past concepts, and also like the other ones the students who might feel left behind because they're not excelling as quickly, and so they're not adapting as quickly. And so how are the new requirements going to affect how they get prepared for the SBA?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So those are questions that the adoption team is really looking at. How can we make sure that we adopt a resource that is going to make sure that matriculation from middle school to high school is powerful and succinct? The district has done a great job in compacting standards instead of saying, let's skip these particular areas of content. Many other districts have just decided students move from 6th grade into For example, algebra, Everett has done a good job about saying we're going to have a compacted curriculum so that students don't miss. So we're paying attention to those things as we look at that new adoption, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your report, and thank you for how detailed you're making it. I appreciate the fact that you have realized through the instructional reviews that you need more coaching available, and that you're developing more strategies for how to prepare our teachers for preparing our students, essentially. And you're looking at those areas where you can increase professional development as well as receive the outcomes that you're hoping for. In slide number 14, is that correct when we look at it and it says grade 11, then grade 10? Is that correct, or is that a misprint?
That's correct. So the state of Washington changed the assessment grade in 2017 to switch from 11th grade assessment to 10th grade. It gives students more opportunities to pass that assessment prior to graduation.
Yes, I was just wondering why it was presented in such a fashion so that those 11th graders are,
It's chronological. It's 1 year
It's
11th graders
chronicle,
took it, and the
yes,
next year
but-
the 10th graders
Essentially, the
took
same assessment was moved
Yeah.
down a grade level.
Yes, okay, I see what you're saying. Now, we always tend to compare ourselves with the state. When we start looking like at slides 11, or the previous slides where you were looking at, I'm trying to find them. Yes, those slides. Slide 7 and slide 8. We always tend to compare ourselves with the state. Have we ever thought about comparing ourselves with other districts who are doing continually better than us in the math, and how we're working towards and how we differ from them?
Yes, and we can provide more information about that. It's something that I'm curious about in the partnership with Northwest ESD. It's something that we're talking to regional schools about what they're doing in order to improve learning, and we'll continue to do that.
Exactly. And I'm also very glad that you're looking at collaborating with UW and trying to, see the comparison of what they're doing and how we can better prepare our students, for those especially that are going to college afterwards, and making sure that they're adequately prepared for higher level math.
Absolutely.
So it's important that we prepare our kids properly, and that when kids graduate, they're prepared and ready to go on. So I'm very happy that you're looking at coaching that's necessary and professional development for our students, and further diagnostics to allow us to get the statistics that we need to see if our kids are prepared. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a point of clarification, just based on Director Lassane's question. On slide 14, so with those 10th graders, it looks like about 58% of them did not meet the standard from that 10th grade. So are we tracking what happens to them in 11th grade when I'm assuming that 58% takes the SBA in 11th grade, and then I guess are they passing it at that point? I'm just trying to figure out where are they going after that 10th grade assessment.
Yeah, so the new graduation requirements either say that students can take the assessment again and pass it, or there's alternate pathways to success, to graduation. So yes,
but we're monitoring. I'm just trying to figure out, so when we see the next one, will it include that about what happened to that 58%?
You'll also,
So the data
It's hard to come up.
accountability data, which reports on grade 10.
Okay.
And now that students do not have to pass that. as
wait, can you come to the lectern
Come to
and then?
come to the podium, please.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
the data that you're seeing here is grade 10, which is our federal accountability year. In past years, students did, in addition, have to pass the SBA in order to open pathways. That's not a requirement, so very few students will go on to retake that test after federal accountability because it is entirely determined by their high school and beyond plan.
So if they're not, and I get that, but I'm thinking about some of the coming up, like the AP and the 2 consecutive CTs. And so I'm wondering if a student isn't passing at this point. I mean, I guess I'm just trying to look for, are they being successful?
Right.
Whatever pathway. I'm just trying to capture that 58% because it is more than half of the students not passing at that point, and just kind of asking that question out there of what are they doing? It would just be good data just in the future to maybe have to say, yep, 10% of them took the ASVAB, did fantastic. A couple of them did CT, did awesome. So that way we at least know pictorially what happened to them.
Right, and they do not have a system now set up at the state level, but I anticipate that we'll have to track that.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have a question about curriculum adoptions as I'm looking at slide 22. What would you say is the typical when you adopt new math curriculum where you would start to see some stronger alignment and benefits of the curriculum in terms of student outcomes?
We talk about the year 1 and 2 as an implementation dip. And I think certainly by year 3, there should be a significant increase. And that's getting, at the high school level, there's 44 teachers that are teaching the core content that will be implementing next year. So we have several days of professional development in this upcoming year, and a year at least of those teachers being in that curriculum and working with a coach or principals that know how to support is going to show growth.
Yeah, I look at the adoption timeline, and it's not just our district; it's our nation. Really, we're in a math crisis here, and I'm looking at 10 years out, and we're finally getting some new, or maybe it's not quite 10, but. And then you tell me it's another 2, third year kind of thing, and I just. Not tonight, but I would be very interested in better understanding if there's any compacting of that timeline that we can do to, I know it's a cost issue, it's a budget issue, and these things get planned out way in advance, but certainly I think we have a lot of room for improvement when I look at, high schools in the 40s. And again, it's not just our district, and it's encouraging to see the elementary school trajectory there with everything that we're implementing currently, the alignment and the professional development and such, in hopes that as those students move into the high school, we'll see. But when you look at the bars, it's not just the arrows going a certain direction, it's like the bars just get lower as we go along. And I think that's acceptable, building out STEM career pathway programs for kids to those jobs. So I really appreciate the work that you're putting into this and the deeper dive that you've given us here today to better understand where we're making those improvements. Sometimes it just takes so long to implement all this stuff, and I would love to see a little more reaction to some of these scores personally. So anyhow, any further comments before we go? Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, we are moving on to, let's see, where are we? An information discussion, and tonight we also postponed our first quarter financial update due to snow. And
So no break?
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Thank you. I missed that. Sorry about that. I got you up out of your seat for nothing. We're going to take a 10-minute break and come back at 06:13. So grab a refreshment, and then we'll have that financial update. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, we're going to continue here and once again get Ruth Floyd up out of her seat to give us our financial update.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
I appreciate the opportunity to summarize our first quarter district operations as part of the quarterly financial review and in support of the district's financial planning. The last meeting on the consent agenda included a November monthly financial report. It's a companion item to this quarterly report. I'll provide an overview of 5 funds and a little bit more in-depth into the general fund. The major driver of state revenues is student enrollment. We have a couple different ways we look at student enrollment. One is head count and another is full-time equivalent, or FTE. Our annual average FTE is expected to be below budget by about 80 this year, and that is mostly at the high school level. We saw some students go to Running Start as well, so some of that will be made up with Running Start FTE. Projected revenues are and transfers are projected to be at about $330 million. This reflects a little over $39 million in levy revenue, and November there includes $2.65 million transfer from capital projects into the general fund. October and April are the high points due to receiving the bulk of our levy proceeds during those months. And there was also a change in the apportionment payment schedule from OSPI. And so that is one of the factors why the revenues are lower than in prior years. As you can see, the green line there is a bit lower, and that is due to the apportionment payment and schedule. They pushed some of the payment more into July and August, and so you'll see more of an uptick in those months as we go forward through the year. Projected expenditures are expected to be around $333 million, well within board appropriations, authorized appropriations of $347 million. Our first quarter expenditures are higher than anticipated. You can see the uptick there, but I expect that is timing. As you can see, last year, or actually more so in 17-18, we had a real dip in November, and that was due to timing, but then it comes right back up, and I expect second quarter you'll see that those expenditures will come back down more in line with trends from prior years. Projected ending fund balance is $29.9 million. That's about 9% of total expenditures, total expected expenditures, and that also exceeds our 5% target. November ending fund balance was $30.8 million, and the dip there reflects several things. One is we are planning to bring down our fund balance somewhat this year. We had that revenue schedule change on apportionment that I discussed, and then the increase in expenditures also is a factor in that for November. That was general fund. Our other funds include capital projects. The revenues are there in front of you, and they are following a similar pattern to previous years, except where there were large match payments received. So that happened, that is from North Middle School. That project, we're receiving quite a few match payments, state match monies. And that occurred in November, and also in August we had some large payments. We also receive our capital levy proceeds in October and April, and that is why the trend shows that it increases in those months. Board authorized appropriations for Capital Projects Fund is almost $75 million. These are multi-year project plans, of which a section of those costs are put into the budget for a particular year. So the trend changes depending on the projects that we're doing. And you can also see that in August, there's always a significant uptick because we do a lot of projects in the summer and we accrue back those costs from August we get the bills in September and October and reaccrue them back. So that's why the uptick in August every year. We expect that again this coming August. November ending fund balance for capital projects was $63.4 million. We did have a series of bond sales, and that balance reflects those bond sales. And it includes the $2.65 million levy transfer out of capital projects into general fund. Debt service fund, we expect our November ending fund balance was $61.7 million, and we use the debt service fund for principal, interest, and other bond costs. So, and we have a bond schedule, and December is the next payment. So in second quarter, when I go over the financials with you, you'll see that dip back down as prior years have done. Similar trends. Associated Student Body Fund, where November was at about $1.7 million in fund balance. Fall is generally the high point because students tend to raise a lot of money in the fall, and their ASB card revenue and parking, those kinds of things come in generally in the fall, and then they spend their money throughout the year. And so we anticipate a similar trend this year as in prior years. This is a table that just compares the first quarter for this year compared to the first quarter from last fiscal year, and then back 5 years. And it just shows whether their fund balance is going down or increasing compared to the prior year's same point in time. For example, Cascade High School, their fund balance has increased year over year. Jackson High School has decreased year over year. Transportation Vehicle Fund is our smallest fund, and we have about $200,000 in there, and we expect to purchase 2 buses out of those funds, and we use that for our special ed programs and our homeless children, whereas we contract with Durham for our main to-from transportation, which is part of the general fund. That is all I have for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Directors, do you have any questions for Ms. Floyd?
I just have a silly statement for you. Okay. I was recently in California and talking to a retired reporter from the Omaha World Herald, and we saw some news up on the TV, and it was the tornado that had hit a school in like North or South Carolina, a storm or something, and I saw buses crashed up, and I said, oh my goodness, those buses have the school district names on them. That's going to cost them a lot of money. Oh. And he looked at me and goes, spoken like a true board member.
Well done.
So thank you for this. I think this is always good for us to hear and to see. And I explained to them, sorry for my whisper, about the Jackson numbers coming down.
Oh, yes.
Why? Because we asked them to.
Yes.
And so thank you for continuing to support them. She supports the ASBs as treasurer kind of accounting kind of thing. And so that was my little whisper over here.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yes, and you'll, the high school ASB will be presenting to you in May their budget for the next fiscal year. And so that's always a fun day.
Yeah. It is. It's a fun day. Yes.
And I just wanted to say thank you again for taking the time this afternoon, both you and Jeff, for going over this with me and showing me what's going on. So much appreciated.
You're welcome.
And I just had a question about the matching funds from the state for North.
Yes.
And what do we do with those? Or where are those going to go?
Do you want to answer that?
So what we do with those is we spend those on other capital eligible projects. So when the board approved the bond resolution, they identified what kinds of projects they would do if they were able to get state matching funds. We also use those quite often to expand the scope of the original projects. Thank you.
Or thank you. I was going to ask a follow. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do those funds occasionally get used if, so I know we're in a period of inflation and increasing costs, dramatic increasing costs year over year. And when you schedule out a bond for 8 years of projects or 6 years of projects, do we ever end up using some of those to help offset some of those increases?
Yes.
Yes.
And then could you remind, just because we have 2 new directors, how those funds come to us and the timing of those?
Absolutely. So just a little primer on state matching funds. Our district is not eligible for state match funds on new projects. We only get we're only eligible on full modernization project like North and Woodside. So we also we have to front fund those projects with bond money. So we need to have the full amount of the project available from the bond to pay for the project. And then really towards the end of those projects, like right now with North, when we're getting the big substantially complete. So it's at the very tail end of the project that we actually get the money in.
And you never know what we are going to get.
That's right. The state is, I would say, ultimately they have been very consistent, but there have been times when the payments from the state have been delayed.
And then to answer your question a little bit or help fill out, often those funds, they do go into the capital fund that you saw tonight, and often they'll go towards sometimes unexpected capital costs, a new roof or some kind of repair that's fairly immediate. A new heating cooling system seem to be very common ones. So those are sort of the reserve funds that either get immediate use for an emergency or they go to the next highest priority project on the list.
And I think the key here is that they are by law required to be capital funds. They can't be spent on general fund expenditures like teacher salaries, for example. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you back soon.
Yes.
That takes us to section 12.0 unfinished business, and tonight we have no unfinished business, which moves us to new business. And tonight we have one policy, 3416, to review. And we have Mr. Fleckenstein here to guide us through that process.
Well, good evening. And the proposed revisions to policy 3416, medication at school, are provided this evening for the board's consideration to comply with House Bill 1095, which provides that parents of a child who is a qualifying patient under Washington's medical marijuana law will be permitted to administer marijuana-infused products to their child on school grounds, aboard a school bus, or while attending a school-sponsored event. Specifically, though, the new law, RCW 28A 210-325, contains language that, upon the request of a parent or guardian of a student who meets the requirements of RCW 6951A 220, the board of directors of a school district shall adopt a policy. This school district does not have any students who are qualifying patients. It is not required to adopt a medical marijuana policy until it receives a request from a parent of such a qualifying student patient. The proposed revisions to policy 3416 presented this evening allow for the potential future adoption of a medical marijuana policy, but also clearly states that students still cannot possess marijuana or marijuana-infused products on district property. It is also important to know that House Bill 1095 does not permit the administration of marijuana on district property to a student who is a qualifying patient by smoking or inhalation. It also does not include medical marijuana as a medication that the school nurse administers. That responsibility is restricted to the parents of a child who is a qualifying patient. This provision under the law does not extend to employees, nor does it restrict districts from taking punitive steps, including termination against employees who possess or use drugs. Neither does it restrict districts from responding to a student in possession or use of drugs in circumstances that are unrelated to parental administration to their child who is a qualified patient. Revisions to Policy 3416, Medication at School, have been reviewed by Legal Counsel, the Policy Review Council, and the Superintendent's Cabinet prior to tonight's meeting. And the beginning of the policy is some minor revisions, as you can see, to the policy language, just outlining the procedures that will be established per this policy. And then on the page 2, you can see the specifically the references I'm pertaining to in state law around having to adopt a policy should a request from an eligible the parent of an eligible student patient were to come to the district.
Thank you. Thank you for the very detailed explanation. Appreciate that. Directors, do you have any questions or comments? Student representative. Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and move this to second reading at our next regular board meeting.
Thank you.
And we are on to upcoming agenda items. Dr. Salzman, may you please walk us through our next agenda items?
Yes, at the February 9th special meeting, the board will attend the Waza Legislative Conference in Olympia. At our regular meeting on February 11th, 2020, we will discuss the following: Strategic Plan Mid-Year Progress Report, Policy 3416, Medication School Revised Second Reading, Budget Development, Capital Projects Update, December Financial Report, Student Representative Selection Committee Board Representation.
What school are we on for student representative? We
Jackson, right? Jackson High School.
Jackson. Okay,
Jackson
great. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to 15.0 executive closed session. And tonight we do have an executive session to consider the price at which real estate will be offered for sale. I believe we are expected to be in executive session for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So we will go ahead and reconvene in the, where are we? The Silver Lake room.
Silver Lake.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you.
Ready? Good night.